London, 1823. The city was fat on gin, debt, and the occasional hanged man, which made it a fine time to be a surgeon. I was a student back then, carrying the smell of formaldehyde like an invisible badge of honor. My tutor, Dr. Alistair Venn, was the kind of man whose handshake felt both polite and predatory. He ran the anatomy theatre at St. Cuthbert's, a drafty old room with sloped benches, the kind of place where the air never quite lost the tang of meat. We learned the human body not from books, but from bodies, fresh ones, the fresher the better. And that was where Dr. Venn's genius and depravity came in. He called it the gentleman's lottery. The rules were simple: 10 tickets, 10 guineas each. Only the most discerning men of taste were invited. The winner got a private seat at the next dissection, with a subject so fresh you could almost have tea with them first. At first I thought he must have a grave robber on retainer. But grave robbing only gets you so far. Corpses decay, and customers dislike blue lips and sunken eyes. These bodies had warmth still clinging to them. The first winner was a portly banker who smelled of brandy and old coins. I stood beside Venn as he made the first incision. I swear, the subject twitched, fingers curling just slightly. Residual nerve activity, calmly, Venn said smoothly, without looking up. His blade moved like he was carving Sunday roast. The banker looked thrilled, like a boy allowed to open Christmas gifts early. I told myself I imagined it, because the alternative meant I was watching murder with a ticket price. 2 weeks later, another lottery, another subject, same faint chest rise when the room fell still. I started watching Venn more closely. He always disappeared an hour before each demonstration. Sometimes he returned with his cuffs damp and the smell of the river clinging to him. Those were the nights the subject was a condemned man from Newgate, still warm from the gallows. Other times there was no river smell, just the faint scent of soap, and the subject's hands were too clean to have been shackled. Those nights the specimen was someone else entirely, a debtor who'd fallen behind on rent, a petty thief no one would miss, or, whispered once among the porters, a man who had displeased Venn. That last one I filed away as rumor. I shouldn't have. I began to notice the clientele as much as the bodies. The raffles weren't merely for doctors. They were for men who wanted to own a moment of death. There was Mr. Caldwell, who imported tea from Bengal and had a reputation for preferring his maids young. He won in November. He sat in the front row, eyes glassy with pleasure, as Venn opened the chest of a boy barely 20. Then there was Sir Joseph Whitby, a barrister who liked to make notes in the margins of anatomy books during the demonstration, as though death were just another contract clause. He won in December. And once, God help me, there was a clergyman, the Reverend Moss. He won in January and prayed aloud as Venn worked, thanking the Lord for this opportunity to understand his creation. The lottery wasn't just a spectacle, it was a mirror, and I was starting to like what I saw. One rainy Thursday, I asked outright where the bodies came from. He smiled, a slow, fox-like thing. My boy, the trouble with hangmen is, hangy are too efficient. Neck breaks are clean. I prefer my specimens. Linger. He didn't have to explain more. I already knew. I should have reported him. I should have run. Instead, I bought a ticket. My number came up on a winter morning so cold the frost bit harder than the scalpel. Venn greeted me like an honored guest, ushering me into the theater. Only this time the specimen wasn't strapped down. He sat upright in a chair, wrists bound, head lolling, his eyes rolled sluggishly toward me. "This one's special," Venn murmured. "We'll start with the abdomen, see if the stomach tightens under observation." The man in the chair tried to speak, but only a wet rattle came out. My mouth went dry. The banker, the barrister, the sugar merchant. I saw them in my mind's eye, leaning forward with the same delighted hunger I now felt pressing in my own chest. Venn worked methodically, narrating each step for my education. "This layer," he said, slicing cleanly through pale flesh, "is where you truly appreciate how a man is held together." The man flinched with every cut. The audience, yes, there was an audience, hiding in the shadows, gasped and whispered like theatre-goers at a particularly good tragedy. And I didn't stop him. Halfway through, Venn placed the scalpel in my hand. "Ha! You're ready, boy. Make the incision." I remember the weight of it, the way the man's eyes met mine, A plea, a curse, a question. I couldn't tell. My hand shook, but the blade still sank in. The skin opened with an almost polite, "Huh." I thought I'd vomit. Instead, I smiled. The weeks after blurred into one long season of raffles and dissections. Caldwell came back, this time without buying a ticket. Venn owed him a favor. Whitby stopped making notes and began sketching. Reverend Moss offered to bless the theatre permanently. The clientele grew stranger. Men who didn't even pretend to care about anatomy, only about the moment a warm body went cold. Venn kept me close, praising my steady hands and clinical detachment. I told myself I was learning. That's what we do as doctors. We learn. But deep down, I knew I was winning more than any lottery. The last demonstration I attended wasn't by choice. I woke to the smell of gaslight and wet wood. My wrists were bound. The theatre was full. Venn's voice rang out, loudly. "Gentlemen, our prize today is unique. A former winner. Let us see how well the pupil remembers his lessons." The audience leaned forward. The scalpel glittered in Venn's hand. And I understood. In this game, everyone's number comes up eventually. If you enjoyed peering into the gentleman's lottery, there are darker rooms I can take you to. My next story will make you think twice about surgeons who promise beauty, and why some faces look thoughtful, familiar. Don't just click away. Subscribe now so you're in the room when it happens, and leave your theory in the comments. Who do you think bought the winning ticket for my turn on the table? The real horror is watching without saying a word.